Welcome to Tech Brothers. In this video, we're going to learn how to configure distribution in SQL Server Replication, and we'll be using two ways to do it, using SQL Server Management Studio graphic user interface and using T-SQL script. Before we go ahead and configure distribution, I just wanted to give a brief overview. Distribution basically is configured on a SQL Server where you want to use replication. Basically, replication has three parts. Three servers, or some of the all these components right here: distributor, publisher, and subscriber. They all can be configured on one server. On one server that you can do all of these, but that's just probably a lab environment. But in your test dev and in your organization environment, usually the best practice is that you should have your distributor on one server and publisher the other servers in your organization, wherever you want to publish the data to any other server using replication feature of SQL Server. That become the publisher, and the subscriber is what receives the data from the publisher. And in your organization there would be many servers where you want to replicate the data from source to destination. Destination becomes the subscriber and source becomes the publisher, and the guy that who basically takes care of moving the data from the publisher to subscriber, that's called distributor. In order to basically start the replication, you need to have one distributor. If you already have a distributor in your organization, you can go ahead and use that and configure your publisher and subscriber. But in this video, we're going to go ahead and configure the distributor, also known as distribution. When you configure distribution in SQL Server, what it does back behind the scene, it creates a database called distribution database, and you can name that database anything you want to, but I would leave it default name distribution. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. This is my SQL Server. I have two SQL servers. One would be my publisher and other would be my subscriber. In this particular scenario, and since I only have two SQL servers in my lab in this demo, what I'm going to do is configure one SQL server as a distributor. So it will act as a publisher or subscriber, as well as it'll act as distributor. So in order to do that, in order for SQL Server to act as a distributor, you have to configure the distribution. So we're going to go ahead, expand the server where you want to configure the distribution. So go on the replication. When you expand the instance, you will see the replication tab right here. You right click on the replication and click on configure distribution. Click next. The wizard will start. Now the first option you get is this server where you're trying to configure the distribution will act as a distributor, will act its own distributor. SQL Server will create a distribution database and log on this server. So basically in this particular demo, yes, we wanted to do that, but if you have the distributor in your network already configured, you can go ahead and click on second option and add that server in order to use the replication feature of SQL Server. So in this demo, we're going to go ahead and select the first option. Yes, we want this particular SQL Server instance to act as its own distributor. So we're going to go ahead and click next. This is the snapshot folder. Whenever it creates first time, every replication that you create on SQL Server, first time it happens back behind the scene is create the snapshot, and it distribute the snapshot from publisher to subscriber. So where it saves the snapshot, right here it saves the snapshot. So if you have a specific directory in your organization where you would like to have replication snapshots saved, you can give right here in this particular local server right here. You can go ahead and change the path if you would like to. So we're going to go ahead and click next. We're okay with this particular path. Keep in mind that this path plays an important role when you're doing the configuration of a distribution, that any user that is creating right here, or SQL Server agent, if you give SQL Server agent to handle the replication, then that particular user needs to have permission to write and read from this folder. That's why it becomes really important. So I just thought that I should mention it. Keep in mind, guys. So we're going to go ahead and click next. This is the distribute database name. You can name as you know, if you wanted to. If you don't like distribution database name, you can change it. And this is the folder distribution database and log files right here. If you wanted to create it somewhere else, the data file and log file, you can go ahead and do that. Best practices are that you do not keep the data file and log file on the same drive. But this is my lab environment. This is just a demo environment, so I'm okay. I don't have any other drive basically, so that I could make the log file to go on any other drive. So I'm okay with that, but you have an option to do that. Click next. Up here is the database name. It's going to right here is going to be a publisher and a distributor, so we're okay with that. So we're gonna go ahead and click next. And up here, this is important, and I think that every good DBA should do this, that configure distribution and generate script file with the step to configure distribution. You should always do that. This becomes the backup of your replication. You know, you should have all the scripts. You should always generate scripts of your replication, so in case you have to disable the replication, you have to delete the replication, and there are many scenarios when you have to disable the replication in SQL Server. So at that point, you don't have to go through all that. All you need to do is get the script and run the script on your target server. So this is kind of important, but it's up to you if you don't want it to generate a script. I already have the script, which we will use in a second, and we will use that script to configure the same thing what we're doing using SQL Server Management Studio graphic user interface. So we're going to go ahead and click next and finish. This should go through the configuration of the distribution, and after that we will see if it has created the database. So everything is successful. We're going to go ahead and close and look in our system database. Right now nothing is there. The distribution database should be there. Right here is distribution database. So this is how basically you configure your distribution to use the replication feature on SQL Server using SQL Server Management Studio graphic user interface. Now what we're gonna do, we're going to go ahead, this is in SQL Server 2012 and SQL Server 2014. You can go ahead and disable. Before that, if you wanted to basically clear the replication, you have to use sp_removed replication store procedure. This is the store procedure that you need to use in order to basically clear all your replication and delete maybe manually your distributor. Because if you go into the system database and right click on the database, there is no such thing which says that delete this database using SQL Server Management Studio. If you try to drop this database, it's going to give you some errors as well. So in SQL Server 2012 and SQL Server 2014, this is a nice feature that you can click on replication, and up here you have an option called disable publishing and distribution. If you click on that and click next and click on yes, disable publishing on this database, that means that it's going to delete the distribution on this database. It's not going to be act as a distributor anymore. It's not going to be publisher anymore. So it's going to go ahead and delete that database. So as we saw that we did SQL Server Management Studio using SQL Server Management Studio, now we're going to go ahead and disable this, delete that database, and it's much easier to delete the database like this, and you can generate the script and use that script later on if you wanted to use that. So we're going to go ahead and click next and finish. This should basically delete the database, distribution database that it has created. So close. Let's go in our system database. Right now we see that. Let's refresh it, and we don't see distribution database. So it also I just wanted to show you that how to disable the replication on SQL Server 2014 and 2012. It works, but not on 2008. There are other ways to remove the replication from SQL Server instance, and we will use that when we will use SQL Server 2008 instance. So we're going to go ahead and load our script now. And this is configure distribution script. So I'm going to go ahead and run this script. All right, so if we go back to our databases and see the distribution database is created, everything, we didn't get any error up here. We created the distribution using SQL script, and let's go quickly through this. So what it does is it add distributor, and this is going to be the distributor, and this is going to be the database, and database log file and data file will be there as we saw in SQL Server Management Studio. So if you change the database name in your script, if you do not like distribution, then you can change the database name. Keep in mind, when you use the script, wherever the distribution database is mentioned, you need to change that to your desired database. It's fairly simple. Right here it creates the snapshot just like we saw in SQL Server Management Studio, snapshot folder right here, replication data, extended, these are extended properties, and add the publisher. In the end, when we do that, this is going to also be the publisher and which database it should use. It should use distribution database when it act as a publisher. So when we will create in next demo, we'll create the publication, then you will see that it really uses back behind the scene distribution database to get all the system stored procedures and tables and everything that replication uses back behind the scene. So basically this is it. This is how you configure distribution in SQL Server replication, so using SQL Server Management Studio using T-SQL script. And I hope this video helps.